Brake job on the Subaru. A little bit late. You can see by the wheel how badly this wheel stained. I drove it while it was dragging a little bit. Because I couldn't get it into service, they put me off over a week. I waited, had a real early morning appointment. I got up, it was a power failure in the house. So it was kind of tough to get up and get out that early. And the shop was closed up. Only shop in town. I guess for good, I don't know. So, doing this job myself. Haven't done a brake job in over 30 years, I think. They're about, I used to do more work on cars. I used to do a lot of work on cars myself. As I got older and busier with work, I didn't do it so much. Making more money at work, and I was on call and all that, so kind of stopped doing auto work. Now that I'm retired, I'm doing a few little things, but didn't really want to do this job. It doesn't really pay for me to do it. It's a long job for a guy who hasn't done it before and has to struggle and fuddle around a little bit. So there's several good brake changing for the rear brakes on a Subaru. There's several good YouTubes, but I'm going to focus mainly on things that screwed me up and made this kind of a pisser of a job. First thing, find yourself some bolts. These got Phillips heads, which is really a disadvantage. If I could find bolts that would fit in there, that's by far the best way to get disc off. At least damaging to your bearings and all that, instead of whacking it with a hammer. Although, that works too when you have to. Like I said, get some with hex heads. Okay, so there's a little bolt that holds the brake hose down there, and it's a 12 millimeter. I already removed the bolt from the bracket here and broke it free and tuck it in here, so it's not going to get snagged there. That'll give me more freedom to move around the caliper, and if I drop the caliper, it's not going to be quite as bad of a deal. So I'm trying to avoid, although I did the last one. I'm also going to use a piece of wire to tie the caliper to the spring at one point, just to keep it a little tension off. I didn't think I needed to do that. Most of the people I watched didn't do that. One guy did. I thought I wouldn't need to, but it'd be a little bit helpful. I really struggled with the other side, for about half hour trying to put one pair of pads in to the wrong caliper. They weren't marked left or right. I didn't see much difference in them, but they are different. So yeah, if you start struggling getting the pads in, once you got it all apart, maybe you got the wrong pair. So okay, I've got the car jacked up. I've got jack stand under a heavy bolt there. I lifted it with the arm carefully with a piece of plastic to shield it a little from scratching it. And now I'm going to start cranking on those bolts to try to free the disc up. I'm also going to get those two 14 millimeter bolts off the top and bottom. And these are pretty tough. There's that bolt there, and there's one in the bottom, similar, a negless. But they both have to be broken free. They're going to be very tight, and you're going to want to put them back on very tight as well. Another sticking point is this connector here. They say to just yank it off. I didn't want to force it. I sure didn't want to break it. I pushed the boot down a little bit, and I had a piece of paper towel. I'll clean that dirt off inside the boot. Sport gloves. And I have the neoprene gloves, but I've been using these because it's cold out. Anyway, if you take a fat tipped screwdriver and get to the back side of it, there's a slot. You can feel with your finger here. Put it vertically into that slot and give it a light turn. You'll compress the jaws, and I'll set the camera down and yank it off. It'll yank off real easy because I got pressure on the jaws. I might work back and forth if I have to. And there it is with the connector pulled off. There's a bit of crud in there. Got past the seal. I'm going to clean that up before I put it back together. I've got a can of contact cleaner out here. No silicone or anything, just plain contact cleaner. And I'll do the same with this side too. Silicone will probably be okay, actually. I don't really want to trust anything in those contacts, though. Don't know how sensitive they might be. Silicone might actually be better, but I'm just going to use the plain juice. Clean it up, wipe it down. And then while I've got the screwdriver out, I want to work on the spring here. Either side, by the hole. Let's go by the hole and pop it out of the hole. And it'll just release real easy then. Unfortunately, I didn't get any new springs with my kit. I guess they generally don't. So now I'm going to tie the caliper to the spring with a wire loosely so I can work on it without stressing the hose too much. Now that I've got it all freed up, both bolts are out and disconnected. Hose is loose on top. I'm ready to pull that thing away. And I bought a big kit. It has all kinds of little things like this in here. This is the number 7 one for the Subaru. That's what I ended up needing. And this is all I used out of that big kit. That piece. My kit came with two. It came with a left drive and a right drive. I grabbed the left. I don't know that it really matters. When you're cranking it, you can kind of keep going the same way, so it's kind of nice to use the left. What's the other side? I'll see if it makes any difference on this side. I don't think it will. So that's the only tool I really needed to buy. I also bought a 7mm hex because I saw a couple people using that, taking the caliper apart further. I didn't really see a need to do that. The big controversy is this brake unit on the back of the thing here. And some people actually remove it. And one way of compressing the piston is to actually remove that, and then you can grab that shaft and torque in the piston that way. And the one guy insists that if you don't take that off, he actually, in his video, he took it off, and I don't know. I don't really recommend his procedure. It sounded like it was necessary to do from his point of view. Then one of his people who followed his instructions had trouble with getting a service code from the computer. So I don't really think it's worth removing it and fussing with all that. I'm going to follow the other guy's advice and crank it in, and I'll tell you how I turned out at the end. But I'm leaving that on and leaving it alone. Using the crank-in method. That's it. So next time I get back to you, I'll have the caliper tied up and I'll have the disc off. A little more corrosion on this side than the other side. This is the left side, driver's side. I'm going to wire brush a little bit of this corrosion away. There's nothing serious of any sort. The one brake pad was stuck pretty good though, the back one. Stuck to the frame pretty well. So I'm going to clean that frame up a little better. I've seen a lot of guys go with wire wheels in their videos. That's probably not too bad. I used a wire brush and I used a little bit of tape with silicone grease on the brake pad tabs. I put it on where the tabs go instead. And I also, before I did that, I scraped them down real well with a straight blade screwdriver, and then I wire brushed them, and then I used a carpenter's pencil and coated everything with graphite. So I don't know if that's advised or not, but that's what I did. And they also want you to put a little bit of silicone on the top of the piston there, because it does turn a little with the electric brake. And at this stage, the caliper will come apart with the brake pads out of there. That floating part will come right out, which happened accidentally on the other side. I will pull that out and make sure the pins are clean and free, and also clean out where the pads rest on it, as described. So I cleaned things up a bit, scraped the surfaces where the brake pads go, and mostly on this guy, I guess. Cleaned the pins, put a little bit of light coating of silicone grease on them. Touch of anti-seize in the bolt holes, touch of anti-seize in the lugs, touch of silicone on the top of the piston, actually a little more than a touch because this piston was pretty rusted. Now I don't see why people tell you to take these, I did it on the other side, I took the rubber, on this side I guess, the rubber plugs out of here, and you really don't need to, the plastic plugs I should say, out of the two holes, you really don't ever need to unless you're going to clean those holes real thoroughly, which wouldn't hurt. They got a good seal on them, I don't think I'm going to bother. And they had you pull them out, if you want to get them out, at this point while you got the caliper free, you can just push a screwdriver right through and pop them right out if you wanted them out. That's what I ended up doing the other side. But like I said, there's really no reason to take them out. The other side I took them out so I could put a rope, the wire through the hole. But this one I just put around the neck of it. Why bother? I had it tied up before in a way that when you pull the cage out, the whole thing dropped and stresses the hose. So that wasn't good. So now I got to do the thing about cranking it in. I'm going to put this part in with the number 7 adapter. Oops, it fell off somewhere. And there's 2 little spikes and 2 little hole divots. And fit them in and clockwise crank it down. It doesn't take much force. I saw some people with the handle all bent up on theirs. I don't know how that would happen. In fact, I wanted to get the one with the hex on the end because I saw in that one video a couple guys had ruined the handle. So I thought maybe a hex would be stronger. But you don't need stronger. You don't need to do anything with the wrench. Just do it all hand tight. As far as compressing this piston down, it didn't take much force. So that's the arrangement of the tool. The adapter's in there, it's in the 2 little holes, and I slowly got to crank it clockwise, and that little floating piece, this collar here, I got to keep advancing clockwise along with it pretty much. And I can do it all by physical hand strength, and I got to keep following with this one. And I'll keep doing that until it stops. Like I said, it's not that much force to do it, and just go slow. It's pushing hydraulic fluid back into the line, so it's no point trying to go fast, just slow and easy. Crank this all the way down with this clockwise motion until it stops. And then you're going to crank it down a little bit further by continuing to turn this clockwise and compress the last little bit out. So you'll have that whole thing compressed all the way back. And like I said, there's no reason to force anything, and not a whole lot of forces is needed, just hand tight stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep cranking this. I'm advancing this because it'll fall out, and if you go too far with the one hand, before you crank this part, you got to keep this one advanced as you go. As you see, it loosens up when you put the piston in, and then if you go too far, you'll disengage everything. Oops. It's a lot easier with two hands, so I'm going to go to two hands here. And so now I've gone as far as I can go by turning it. Turning the whole shaft. So now I'm just going to concentrate on turning this part. Like I said, it was real easy, and then it just stops. And don't force it. And now I'm going to do the same with this guy. I'm going to crank it in almost by hand. Maybe with the glove on I can do it again. I did the other one by hand. I may grab the something gentle, but don't put a lot of force in that either. Just get the piston compressed the rest of the way now. And now I've turned that big part to the point that piston's fully compressed. And now I'll loosen it up and get the tool out of the way. And Kitty climbed up my shoulder while I'm working here. And then work the pads in. Again, only one side works. The springs go to the back side. And if it looks like the spring side would fit better on the top side, then you got the wrong pair. Like I said, there's a left pair and a right pair. And mine weren't marked. And so they're square and they're all the way in. It's flush with the frame basically as it can be. It's as wide as it can be and as flush as it can be. Back side's driven all the way back and flat. Top side's all the way driven back and flat. And they don't want to sit flat. You kind of got to make them. Well, give them the job a last look. I didn't pull the things out, so I don't need to put them back in. The little plugs. Got the wire cap plugged back on. The wire's plugged back. It doesn't hold as well as I want it to, though. It's latching, but very softly. I hope I didn't ruin it with brake cleaner. The electrical connection didn't snap in as good as I liked it. I do have it snapped in, though. Hopefully the little teeth will return to their place and keep it locked in. The only thing I forgot is this little guy. I've been looking. Last time I forgot the bolt for the brake on top there, that little 12 millimeter. This time I almost forgot the spring. The spring is pretty easy to do. Just shove it in the hole deep and one tab down. Try to get it started in the other hole. Use a screwdriver to push it past this tab and then tap it into that hole for all the way. Make sure that both sides are sitting where they should be. And now I'm ready to just put it back together, put the tire on. I can't think of anything else I missed. So the last step is to hit the brake pedal real hard several times. Really, you'll feel it the first 2 times. Get the brakes pumped back up. So was it worth it or not? I don't know. I was looking at what the brake job might have cost me online, and I saw prices everywhere from, $100 on the labor, not the parts, all the way up to, a total cost of like $700. So to get a front or back done, it looks like front and back are pretty much the same deal. Although you get the little complication of the parking brake in this one. I paid about $85 for the brakes, discs, and pads through eBay. Looks like some pretty quality stuff, pretty respectable dealer. They weren't super fast though, they took a good day to get them out. I was trying to help get it all out and I was hoping everybody would get stuff out the same day if I ordered early, which was kind of silly, but the one tool I didn't need, that 7mm hex, they got here, that got mailed the same day I made the order. That was really good service. This kit, I could have got a cheaper kit and I probably should have because it's kind of a waste to have left-hand screw one, along with the right-hand screw one. Well, left hand is the normal one, the right hand is the strange one, I guess. And I just need that one disc and that one metal plate, a little smaller metal plate of the two. And that's it, So the smaller kit probably would have worked, and I could have gotten the smaller kit as low as $20. I paid about $23, $25 probably with all the taxes and stuff. And that's with free shipping, and the brakes included shipping too, so that was a pretty good deal. So it took most of a day though, probably a good 7 hours. It didn't really take any big breaks. It took a lot of little breaks, I wasn't that productive. Still no major breaks. It took me like 4 hours to do the first one. The second one took me 3 hours, and I was filming too, which slows things down. So probably if I did a fourth one, third or fourth one, I would knock them out a little bit faster. But that's just knowing what tools you need and what works and what you don't need to do. And a little bit strange on some of the YouTubes I watched. A lot of guys taking the cover off, the effing around with the parking brake, and then people emulated that. I saw in their comments they were having trouble. I don't think you want to touch that unit. My theory with that unit is when you crank it, when you're cranking this thing clockwise and driving the piston down, I think you're kind of rewinding it too. I think it acts like almost like a stepper thing, where you wind up the spring and then it releases it. The computer releases it bit by bit as the wear goes on, so that it's in range. adjustment range for the parking brake. That's my theory. If you know I'm wrong, let me know. If you know I'm wrong. But that makes sense to me. And so you don't really want to screw with that thing. You just want to crank it back in mechanically. I don't think you even need to bother with the computer, even if you have it. And everything works out just fine. I think where it struggles is if you do mess with that thing and it's trying to release the tension and there's no tension to release, then it sees an error. And that would happen if you did what the other guy told you to do. So, yeah, just leave the thing alone. Keep it simple. As far as the 7mm, I probably could have done that instead of taking the bolts out the back. And maybe it would be a little lighter if I did it that way. I don't know what the advantage is doing it that way. But to me, that's a more fragile tool, a more fragile part of the assembly that I don't really want to mess with. I went with the big bolts on the outside. Didn't really need to mess with the 7mm. Anything else? The spring, I hope I didn't ruin the clip on the last plug. I went blind with the screwdriver in the back of it. The first one I did, I was able to see the opening because I was down under there. And you kind of got to see the opening and get right in the center of that thing. There's like a square opening and there's like 2 bars inside of it, little spring bars. You want to get in between them. You don't want to get beside one of them. I think that's what I'm afraid I might have done, gotten on the wrong side, going blind at it. So you want to get between them. And it does, hold on a little bit, but doesn't hold on as firm as I'd like it to. I'll keep an eye on that. I'm hoping it'll spring back and, lock in better with time, vibration. But everything works fine and smooth, and I don't know if I'll do the fronts or not. I'll be thinking about that. I guess when I still have to get the tires swapped over to snow tires, and when I go there, I'll ask them what they would have charged me for a brake job, so I know what the fronts are going to cost, I'm not due for them yet, though. It's going to be a while, hopefully. And that's about it. Any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'm not an expert. I'm just a shade tree mechanic. He hasn't done this job for like 30 years. And the only wound was this mystery hole in my hand. Don't know how or when I did it.